Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum and welcome to Newsroom. I'm your host, Khalid. But today is the 6th of September, ladies and gentlemen. Today is a very important day, that is the Defense and Martyrs Day. It's the 58th Defense and Martyrs Day. So we thought let's do a special on the sacrifices, on the efforts that have been made by all three of our forces to not only defend our motherland, but bring it at par with all the other developed and developing countries. We have a representative from each of our armed forces here. In this very show. Let me introduce them to you one by one. On my very right is the AVM retired Ijaz Malik Saab. He's a senior analyst. Thank you very much, AVM Saab, to have joined us. Our second guest is Brigadier retired Shahid Jagir Saab. He's a senior analyst. Thank you very much, Brigadier Saab, to have joined us. And our third guest is Rear Admiral retired Moazzam Ilyas, who is a senior analyst as well. Thank you very much, sir, to have joined us. Pleasure. So we have, ladies and gentlemen, more or less one representative from each of our armed forces. Before we go forward with a discussion on the forces and their contribution to Pakistan defense and Pakistan stability, let's watch this short report.
This is the border where the cowardly Indian Army attacked Lahore between 3 and 5 a.m. on the 6th of September 1965 from three sides. With the illusion that they would drink morning tea at the Lahore Gymkhana, India broadcasted the news of the capture of Lahore at 8 a.m. on the radio and also celebrated the victory. In the meantime, the soldiers of Pakistan forces were trampling Indian arrogance of power. As soon as the enemy started attacking Barki, Dayal, Chogal, Rani Front, Khemkaran, the Punjab Rangers and 10th Division of Pakistan Army stopped the attacking enemy hundreds of yards from the border, and they kept dreaming of drinking tea in Lahore Gymkhana for the next 17 days. At 11 in the morning, when the presidential address was broadcast on the radio and it was decided to give a befitting response to the enemy, the Pakistan Air Force started air support and reduced to ashes the company of the Indian Gurkha regiment that was preparing to attack near the GT road. The Indian Army had reached the Rohi Canal in Khem Khiran Sekar. The Pakistani Army repelled their attempts to cross the canal until 11 a.m. and killed 150 enemy soldiers and detained 15 others by the evening. By 8 p.m., the Indian 4 Mountain Division was repulsed and retreated, devastated by the Pakistan Armed Forces, which pushed the enemy across the border into Indian territory by bridging the Rohi Canal, while the Kasur Army companies captured the headquarters of India's 7th Brigade and 18 Rajivtana rifles in Asaluddin. By 10th of September, the Pakistani flag was flying as far as Khemkaran, Rani Post, Katkar and the outskirts of Amritsar. This is the field of Chavinda, which the world knows as the graveyard of Indian tanks. After retreating in Pasru and Zafarwal areas on the 6th and 7th of September, 6 divisions and regiments of the Indian Army with 600 tanks and at least 50 to 80,000 troops launched a full-scale attack on September the 8th. The battle was fought here for 14 days. It was the largest tank battle since World War II. On the other hand, the cowardly 4th Sikh Regiment was moving towards Barki, near the Barki-Khalara border, BRB Canal, and encountered the Pakistani Army. 90 Indian soldiers were killed on this front on September 8th to 9th. The enemy attacked 8 times in 3 days, but Colonel Nawaz Syal and Major Aziz Bhatti Shahid fought bravely. The attack was repulsed, and on the September 11th, Major Aziz Bhatti Shahid was martyred in this very location in defense of the motherland while giving firing instructions. The 1965 war was fought on the strength of faith rather than resources, as the Pakistan Air Force was facing an enemy which was 6 times bigger than itself. On 6th of September, when the Indian Air Force attacked Pakistani passenger trains, the Pakistani Sabres shot down the enemy's first missed air aircraft. On that day, Pakistan's Air Force attacked the enemy's Pathankot, Pallava and Jodhpur air bases and destroyed 28 aircraft on the ground and in the air while shooting down 8 planes on the second day. Then the Indian Air Force attacked Sargodha, where it had to face pilots like valiant fighter pilots like Moazzam, who shot down 5 Indian fighter jets in just 30 seconds, which is a world record. 70 Indian aircraft were destroyed in one single day. On 8th of September, Pakistan Navy's PNS Ghazi reinforced the border security by destroying the Indian coastal town of Dwarka, where the Indian Forces radar station was conducting attacks in Pakistan. Even today, the forces of Pakistan and the nation have the same determination to sacrifice everything for national security, and they are ready for the defense of the motherland.
You watched this very exhaustive report as far as what happened on this very day in 1965 and how all our armed forces together thwarted the attempts of the enemy from engaging what it called aggressive or arrogant behavior into entering Pakistan and having tea within Pakistan territory. Let's begin with our representative from the Air Force. AVM Ijaz Malik Saab, the 6th of September still is very fresh in our minds, even though I am from the generation afterwards, and I'm sure, I don't know how many of you were there when it actually happened, but I'm sure all 3 of you have witnessed it directly or indirectly. How do you feel the precedent of the efforts, of the zeal, of the determination, of the passion of all the forces is still being followed in contemporary Pakistan in all of the challenges that we are confronted with?
If we go by the book, the mission of Pakistan Air Force was and it remains the air defense of Pakistan and support surface forces in the smooth conduct of their respective operations. And that was the classic example which was manifested in 1965 war, wherein Pakistan Air Force ensured air superiority and supported our land forces starting from day one in the northern sectors, Lahore, and subsequently elsewhere wherever it was required to support in the close support role, and similarly we were there to support our naval forces as and when required. And the most significant part of, if we compare with the contemporary environment, I think the most significant part was the morale of the nation and the spirit of being united, wherein all 3 forces conducted joint operations and with the full support of each and every person out of the Pakistani communities wherever they were, be it these people coming out to donate blood, or be it the soldiers fighting on the front, and people from cities supporting them, or in fact trying or insisting to go on borders and fight alongside their brothers. And even our poets, our composers, our singers, they were also on the war front to boost up the morale. So that was the classic example, and I think we need similar unity and similar cooperation and collaboration now, because in a hybrid war situation the requirement is even much more essentially required.
Exactly, and I think the requirement is also a coordinated efforts between all of our forces and our agencies and our people, because once the nation is one together, that is one, it can defeat any enemy, small or big. Coming to you, Brigadier Shahid Jagir Saab, as a representative of the Pakistan Army, we've all seen what happened in the Battle of Chawinda. We were reminded of that. How, in your point of view, did the war of 1965 prove to be a defining moment as far as Pakistan's history is concerned?
Thank you very much for inviting me. I would just say the history of the military warfare, it concludes to this thing that although wars are fought by the weapons, but won by the will and determination of the man behind the gun. It's always the man's spirit, his willingness to sacrifice for his motherland, and his duty to defend the territorial integrity of their country. And 65 war was a classic example of a nation at war. I proudly say that I was born in the army in a unit which was deployed in the Batapo on 6th September. The will of the individuals can be judged that the first Indian attack came at 4 o'clock, and the units were moved on that night to the BRB, which is the defense location, because in the peacetime the border cannot be manned by the international border cannot be manned by the regular forces. They were still digging the trenches, and when the first attack came. And the determination can be seen by this thing, that the co-commander of the Indian offensive force abandoned his jeep and ran away. Okay. The second thing is that Batapur bridge, as far as was being defended by us, it was on reserve demolition. When the Indian Armour Division, which was known as the Black Elephant and the pride of India, its first tank came on the bridge. It was General Tajamal, then the CEO of 3 Baluch, which fired the first shot of the recoilless rifle, which made that tank incapacitated. Then the rest of the 2 tanks which were following were taken on by the cap by the PF, and that's how that bridge was blocked. So you can see that the morale, the will of the troops, the commanding officer, and everyone at the different stairs of the hierarchy. They were willing to die for anything. We did not go to UN to stop the war. It was India which initiated, and it was Indian Army Chief of Army Staff which told the Prime Minister that we are left with 10 days ammunition on our front. But our people, as far as the history goes, the people of Lahore, they really, it was difficult for them from the mouth of the people, those who are now the old veterans, that it was very difficult to stop the people from going to the front. It was a challenge for them. The people wanted to go and participate. So I say that this war can be only won by a nation if the nation is ready together, and Pakistani nation is the most resilient nation. And as you have asked, that spirit is still there, that spirit has augmented, and you have seen the war on terror. Our coming generation, as when we were young, we used to read the insurgency of Malacca and other old insurgency wars. I'm very positive that my coming generation will read the war in which the Pakistan Army fought to clear the terrorism menace from Fatah. So you see there is a difference in the stance of our soldiers today. Even because, as it is said, the best training for the war is the war itself, but it is not always that you always remain in the war. Today's soldier, I say, is much more trained, much more better equipped, much more aware, and much more indoctrinated with this intention of defending the motherland, and he can sacrifice anything for that. And I'm sure in the time to come, what to talk of India, nobody in the world can see our country or dare to invade our motherland.
Ameen, inshallah. Coming to our third guest, but nevertheless a very important guest, is our first interaction. I've had interaction with the rest of the two guests many a times, but with you it's our first. Rear Admiral retired Moazzam Ilyas Saab, you represent the Pakistan Navy. How, in your point of view, looking at 1965 and now on the 58th Defence and Martyrs Day in 2023, how do you see the coordinated action of the Pakistan Army, the Pakistan Navy and the Pakistan Air Force from Lahore, Karachi, Run of Kutch to Chamjodiyan, and all the sectors who made the dreams of the Indian leadership a complete ruin? Today, in this day, how important is that realization in this new generation of all the sacrifices that were made by the three armed forces?
Well, thank you very much, Omar. Thank you for inviting me on this discussion. I think by all accounts, 1965 war was a classical example of valor and bravery by all the participants, by all the personnel of the three armed forces. In fact, Brigadier Saab has already said it is actually a classical example of nation at war. There was unity. People from the nation, from all across the walks of life, they were ready to go alongside the armed forces to combat the enemy, which had cowardly attacked Pakistan, and they wanted to have tea at Gymkhana, as just told. But having said that, Pakistan Army, Air Force and the Navy, all three of them, their actions actually ruined them, pushed them together, and we were able to bring victory to our nation, defend our sovereignty, defend our territorial integrity, and it stood victorious at the end of the war. Having said that, I must say that most of the operations, they were restricted on land. So the coordination between the Air Force and the Army was classical in all the operations which brought success to Pakistan. Navy was rather limited in the sea front. We had, however, deployed our submarine alongside the enemy coast, and because of this deployment, the enemy fleet remained confined within the harbors because they had not known the position of the enemy and position of the submarine, and they also knew the immense firepower that it brought along with itself. Torpedoes could have taken down INS Vikrant, their aircraft carrier, within a matter of seconds. So they remained confined to their harbors, and because of that confined, Pakistan Navy had the overall freedom at sea and control of the sea. We could carry out number of operations. In fact, ship to ship or surface to surface action was limited. However, the Varka operation, which was one of the very significant operation in order to reduce the Air Force deployment at Jamnagar and Bhuj, which were in close vicinity of Karachi, and who could have generated that air sortie to threaten Pakistan, we were able to neutralize it with the available warships, and we neutralized them altogether. We came back safe and sound. Not even a single ship, not even a single platform was attacked by the enemy. Not by their surface ships, they did not have submarines, but not even by their aircraft. So in 65 war, overall I look at this war from the angle that we were all together. We were all contributing to the war effort which was happening primarily on land and the air, and in support of that war, Pakistan Navy did its mission of defending the maritime frontiers, defending the Karachi port, Karachi harbour, and came out victorious at the end. Having again said that, I think that in the current milieu, Pakistan stands united against any threat to its territorial integrity. Our nation has been together in 65, has been together later on. Currently, in the contemporary challenges which have dissipated on the threat spectrum from a conventional threat to a lot of unconventional domain. Terrorism is one, but there are a number of others. Terrorism on land, terrorism at sea, both are possible, and we are united against that. We have seen examples of defeating terrorism on land. We have seen examples of defeating terrorism at sea. We are duty bound to defend our maritime interests, which include Karachi Port, Port Qasim, and now the emerging Gwadar Port. We have instituted task forces, and we get a lot of support from our nation to defend these maritime interests with all the vigor and the zeal.
I think that is very important. The vigor, the zeal, it still has to be, it has to be the same zeal, vigor or passion that all the forces had along with the nation, that needs to be re-imbibed in this day and age when we are confronted with different challenges, whether it be in the form of hybrid war, as Brigadier Shahid Jagir Sahab has pointed out, or other challenges that we have, regional and of course national and international, and we all discuss that on a very regular level. Coming back to you, AVM Ijaz Malik Sahab, the coordinated action we talked about of all the forces, and of course the leadership's determination to safeguard the nation's interest in the face of adversity in 1965 was emblematic of the collective spirit of the Islamic Republic of Pakistan. How can we bolster this collective spirit in 2023 in our society?
Leadership displayed, its role and its, utmost conviction that they are there to lead. I will just quote an example, the speech of then President Field Marshal Ayub. His speech just infused such a massive, will to fight that it is still remembered. Then in case of Air Force, our then Chief of Air Staff, Air Marshal Noor Khan, he himself was conducting the reconnaissance missions prior to war, just in the first few days of September 1965. So that was an example of leading from front. We need the same kind of leadership both at political as well as at military level, who can assess the challenges and then make right decisions along with collective support of the entire nation. And then the challenges, it could be the challenges of stability, it could be economic stability, or it could be political stability in the country, or safeguarding against the conventional or kinetic threats. I think we need that as much as now as it was required in 1965.
Brigadier Shahid Jagir Sahab, we see many an issue, whether it be from within our country. We've seen lately, I don't want to go into that, but of course the way the image of our forces was tarnished a few months back, and the image that is being celebrated on social media against our armed forces despite all the sacrifice. Had it not been, I have to say that on the record, had it not been for our armed forces, we would not have been a nation today in 2023. It is due to the collective resolve of all three of the forces that you represent, and the fight that they have fought many a times against enemies from within, enemies from beyond, that we are where we are as a sovereign nation. This is also a day, in my point of view, and I'd like your emphatic point of view on that, to renew the pledge that we are a strong, a proud nation, and we will not be intimidated by any foreign entity, nation, or any element that wants to destabilize our country in whatsoever way. What should be, in your point of view, our pledge on our 58th Defence and Martyrs Day?
First of all, I would say that we have to understand, as you have very rightly pointed out, what are our power potentials. Second point, as you have very rightly pointed out, that the obtaining environment are such that the nuclear power capabilities with the South Asia, the conventional war capability or probability is less, because always, like starting an orchestra, you say that it is easy to start, but it is very difficult to end. And in the war, although you make a war plan with the end state in mind, but once the word go is given, the action and reactions are always the determining factors. So, our adversary, which has not accepted us from last 70 years or so, would find it now difficult to come on a conventional war, because they know that it will lead to the nuclear thing. Therefore, the present environment calls for the hybrid war, as we have seen in the past, supporting of TPP, supporting of anti-state elements, capture of Yadav,
Kulbhushan Yadav.
Kulbhushan.
Yes, naval commander. So these are all the indicators that they want to destabilize Pakistan. The armed forces of Pakistan are the binding glue of the country. I would say nothing less than that. And they say that when they know that this is the center of gravity of Pakistan, so as an enemy, they are right to attack. And they will do, and when you want to undo or undermine the armed forces, the best way is to have a wedge between their higher command and the lower commands or the soldiers. And that is what you are seeing in the present social media activities which are going on, and especially when the most of the social media news which are against Pakistan Army are originated from India. So the need of the hour is that we people, the Pakistani people, should be mindful of this fact. They should not be carried away by this propaganda. They should not be carried away by the social media, because social media is such a thing where anyone can get up and say anything without any credible evidence.
Of course.
You know, and we Muslims believe that in Quran God says, don't accept a statement of anyone till the time you verify it. But unfortunately, we are not that educated. We are not disciplined in the social media. We, although the government has taken a lot of leverages, and a lot of effort has been done by the government on controlling the social media, but still the paid agents will keep doing their thing in a covert manner, what is suitable to their paymasters.
All right, that is a very important point, and that I'm going to further extend towards my third guest, Rear Admiral retired Moazzam Ilyas Sahab. Moazzam Ilyas Sahab, our country has a huge youth bulge. A majority, huge majority, comprises of youngsters that are going to shape our nation in the coming years, in the coming decades. In your point of view, what is the right message to give to them with respect to the importance of this day, and what is the spirit of the Defence and Martyrs Day in your point of view?
Thank you. Actually, you know, the importance of this day can be mentioned in many ways, but as I said, it is a story of courage, valor, bravery, sacrifice in order to carry out one mission, and that mission was to defend Pakistan against any threat, be it on land, be it in the air, be it on the sea. And that is where the armed forces were prepared, and that is what the armed forces were trained for. And they proved their mettle by laying their lives, by sacrificing their lives on a number of fronts. Ruining the enemy, not letting them, make any move, not letting them make any dent on the territorial integrity of Pakistan. But in doing that, there was the nation who was standing behind it, standing for the same cause that the armed forces were standing for. Pushing them, giving them all the support that they could. In many ways, it was discussed, I think Ijaz did mention this, that people were coming in, they were thronging to come and give blood to the injured soldiers. They were ready to lay their lives, lay themselves on the ground in Chavinda to break the bone of enemy armor advances. And that is what they did. And we all saw what was the outcome of that. So for this youth bulge, for the younger generation of Pakistan, the only message that I have is to stand behind the armed forces as one, to understand the cause and the mission of the armed forces, because it's a national cause. And in order to do that, there are lots of challenges, of course, I won't deny that, but every challenge comes with opportunities. So we have to understand the challenges, and we have to make it into an opportunity for the nation to exploit and to be able to augment the defense of Pakistan. So for the youth, the only message that I have is to believe in the actual cause of Pakistan, actual mission of the armed forces, and support them as one. Because, as I said, the threat spectrum from peace to war has actually dissipated into a lot of gray areas. There are, as we term them as hybrid wars or hybrid threats, there are those gray areas where the enemy is operating within you in the guise of your friend. You have to be able to differentiate between friend and foes. You have to be able to defend against those threats that come in multiple nature, like social media. It is impacting on the minds of our younger generation in a much bigger way. We have to be able to attend to this challenge and make it an opportunity into garnering the support of this youth into the mission of Pakistan.
I think that is a very important statement. The mission of Pakistan, I think, is something that should be on everybody's hearts, everybody's brains, and everybody's lips. And this is the importance in this day and age of Pakistan standing as one, unified. I always remember the three words by our Qaid Muhammad Ali Jinnah: unity, faith, and discipline. I think these three words are extremely important in this day and age, and they should also be remembered on the Defense and Martyrs Day, because this is what our armed forces also stood for: unity, faith, and discipline. AVM Ijaz Malik Saab, do you feel that the events of this 1965 war, and we've highlighted them in the very exhaustive report that we saw in the very beginning, proves that it is not the size of the enemy that matters, but the courage and devotion that matters in any war?
Exactly. I would give you example of the air operations. They were, we were in fact 1/5 of the size of the IF, but right on the second day, they had to ground their entire fleet of NAT aircraft, because they realized that they will not be able to, fight us or our, valiant, airmen in the air. So their entire fleet of NAT was grounded. Secondly, if we go by the neutral and authentic, kills and results of the war on both sides, almost all their or most of their damages or kills were on ground. That means, and on our side there was none on ground, and all the few aircraft that we lost, they were in actual combat in the air. So that means Pakistan Air Force took the war to their homeland. They took the war to their bases. We neutralized their three main bases who were supposed to do the counter air operations for in support of the ground forces, so Halwada, Pathankot, and Adhampur. and we made that air completely, it belonged to us. And subsequently there was very occasional strikes which were coming into Pakistan, and it was most of the time that our aircraft were going, and either we were doing the combat air patrol over our own territories, or we were going in for these strikes into Indian territory. So that shows that it is not only the machine that you are provided with, it is the mastery of that machine, the man-machine interface. And our pilots, they optimally utilized the capabilities of F-86s or F-104 at that time to an extent that it was not even imagined or war gamed by our adversaries. It took them by surprise.
Okay. Last two questions from my last two guests. Firstly, beginning with you, Brigadier Jagir Saab. Pakistan emerged victorious, strong, self-confident after the 1965 war against India, and of course we are proud of our armed forces for how they managed to defend our motherland. Has India learnt anything from the 1965 war?
I don't think that India learned, because Indians are master in concocting and fabricating the facts. They are telling their nation that they have been victorious. And I answered this question in two sentences. Do the victorious goes to the United Nations for ceasefire? If they were victorious, why their Chief of Army Staff, as I told you before, that told the Prime Minister that we are left with this much of ammunition? And third, have they been able to capture area inside Pakistan? Because they were on the offensive. If the answer of all these questions is no, so how can they say that factually they won the war? Pakistan is a very resilient nation, and Pakistan will progress. We have shown our resilience in our fight against terrorism, where not only the armed forces, our civil military forces, our police, our civilians, we have even sacrificed our next generation in the attack on APS in Peshawar to defend this country. And I'm very positive that the generation going to come to lead this country will lead it much better way than we are.
Inshallah.
Provided we are sincere, we are sincere to the mission of the Pakistan, and lead the Pakistan with our full heart.
And this is what the armed forces have always done, always led by the heart and used their brains in order to thwart the enemy and enemy designs. Last question to you, Rear Admiral retired Moazzam Ilyas. Pakistan's Defence Day is a story, a tale of unity in diversity. How does this day in 1965 and now in 2023, when you look back at it 50 years down the lane, how this day stands as a beacon of hope in a world that is beset by polarization and divides?
Well, I think it's a very pertinent question, I must say. If you see on the geopolitical landscape, there are a lot of challenges. There are a lot of regional pressures on Pakistan. There are multilateral countries, multilateral organizations which are creating a lot of pressures or impressions on Pakistan, where we are required to change our policies and adjust to the current contemporary situation. I personally think that the message that must go down to the nation on this day, which is 6th of September, is that we have to be able to stand united as a nation. We have to be able to understand those challenges that are coming and that have taken shape in many respects, at sea, on land, in the air. And we have to be able to defend our country from within those challenges and create opportunities for ourselves. I feel that in the current times, in the current contemporary situation, Pakistan needs to first put our own house in order. Our first priority should be economic integration and economic development, because this is where the whole base or foundation of a country is laid, and this is where our defense is instituted. And with this, we should be able to neutralize those threats which are coming from a single country or host of countries working together against the interests of Pakistan. And the nation, I'm sure, understands these challenges, understands the opportunities also which are coming with these challenges. We need, as AVM Ijaz was saying, a good leadership to harness and garner the strengths of our nation in the direction where we can confront those challenges.
All right. Important words, wise words from all three of you. Thank you very much to all three of my guests, AVM Ijaz Malik Sahab, Brigadier Retired Shahid Jagir Sahab, and last but not the least, Admiral Retired Moazzam Ilyas Sahab, to have given us your points of views, the sections of the armed forces that you represent and how they have contributed towards Pakistan's defense and stability, and what is the message that emanates on the 58th Defense and Martyrs Day in 2023. Thank you so very much again to all three of you. Ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to end today's show by quoting our caretaker Prime Minister Anwarul Haq Kakar Sahab, who said, "Martyrs have sacrificed their lives for the sake of Allah Almighty by defending the nation and the country, and they always live in our hearts. Today, the only way to pay homage to the martyrs is to respect them and their families, as they cannot be forgotten." Also, our country's military leadership has said that on the 6th of September 1965, it was again displayed that a smaller but righteous force overcame a numerically larger army with professionalism, determination and faith. Professionalism, determination and faith. Three words that we need to remember and inculcate in our daily lives. Allah Hafiz.